Hello, welcome back. In a recent live stream, Amberlynn Reid, who is one of YouTube's most unlucky content creators when it comes to being diagnosed with various medical conditions, said this.
People think I was joking when I said I got diagnosed with OCD. Like, you guys see the scars on my arms from my excoriation. That's due to OCD. OCD isn't, oh, my sink has to be cleaned after I wash my dishes. No, you're just a cleanly person. So people don't understand like what actual like obsessive thoughts and obsessive like OCDs are.
Now this was kind of curious to me because Amber is very confident in this live that she has OCD, but I, along with many other people on the internet, heavily suspect that she's never been given this diagnosis and she in fact gave it to herself, not unlike many of her other diagnoses which she claims to have. There's a comment underneath this live which says this. This person writes, "You don't have OCD. You pick disorders that allow you to make excuses for your terrible behaviours. I've been clinically diagnosed since I was 14. I don't wear my OCD like a badge of honour like you do. It's an everyday prison. It's not saying, I love sparkly things, I'm so OCD, you are so insufferable." So I decided that now would be an appropriate time to delve into Amber's recent and also historic OCD lies. First of all, I'm going to establish that she has in fact lied. Then we're going to talk about why I think she might have lied about OCD specifically. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why it's so damaging to pretend to have a disorder that you don't actually have. I do have another video that's very similar to this about Amber's BPD lies. This is the video here. This is all about her claiming to have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when she definitely hasn't been. In that video, I highlighted how much Amber loves to use diagnoses of all different kinds to deflect, attack, garner sympathy, and also just make herself out to be a victim. Whilst researching for this video, I came to the realization that on her YouTube journey over the 12 years Amber's been online, she has claimed to have over 30 different diagnoses, afflictions or conditions, including, but not limited to, hernia, lipedema, lymphedema, uterine cancer, gallstones, kidney stones, high blood pressure, hypothyroidism, binge eating disorder, UTI, carpal tunnel, swollen spine, hip bursitis, acid reflux, excoriation, depression, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, slip disc, long-sightedness, seasonal affective disorder, asthma, heel spur, chronic athlete's foot, insomnia, memory loss, generalized swelling, allergy to eggs, ADHD, PTSD, CPTSD, OCPD, and OCD. That list is not exhaustive, by the way. It's been widely documented that Amber tends to add a new diagnosis like every 2 or 3 months to the list. They often tend to come out when she's trying to deflect from various scandals, and usually we just kind of roll our eyes and keep it moving. Nobody makes too much commentary about the specific diseases which she claims to have, or illnesses or diagnoses or whatever, and generally that's because there is just so much to say about her in general that these diagnoses kind of fall to the wayside. But when I was watching this recent live stream, I was really struck by her doubling down so hard on having OCD. So in this video, we're going to discuss the discrepancies in the timeline of Amber's OCD diagnosis and cover how Amber uses these alleged diagnoses, all the different ones that she's had, as kind of an excuse for her behaviour. And we're going to discuss how her doing this could potentially further stigmatise these conditions, which lots of people who follow Amber genuinely do suffer with. We'll also talk a little bit about Amber's point-blank refusal to just get some bloody therapy. So when it comes to the diagnosis timeline, those of you guys who are deep in the Amberlynn lore will remember the first time that Amber ever talked about OCD on her channel, it was with reference to her then girlfriend Crystal, who Amber claimed was formally diagnosed with OCD. In one of her very early videos from 2014, this video here titled Life with Amberlynn, February 3, 2014 Part 1, Amber discusses her OCD in this video, and she says that because of this OCD that she has to write down the dates of all of her dance workouts.
So one fact you can learn about me is that I do have OCD, so does my girlfriend, but we both have different OCD. I'm very compulsive when it comes to certain things. So this is my little dance schedule, so every song that I do, I'm gonna write down. That is like way compulsive. Like, do I really need to do that? I guess so.
And as far as I can tell, it's also in this video where Amber first mentions Crystal's OCD.
Since I gave you guys an OCD thing that I do, I'm gonna tell you one that my girlfriend does. Are you guys ready for it? She washes her hands. She washes her hands Oh. I mean, she'll wash her hands after pretty much like anything that she does. And not only that, but if I'm cleaning the cat box or I'm feeding the cats or I'm doing something involving something kind of gross with my hands, she'll need to wash her hands.
So it sounds like, at least from what Amber's saying, that her then girlfriend Crystal genuinely does struggle with OCD. Granted, nothing that Amber says from this period or ever can be taken as absolute fact, but if Amber is to be believed, then her girlfriend has this genuine struggle, which Amber basically just comes along and commandeers and claims for herself also. A tiny bit later in this video, Amber confirms that Crystal has the diagnosis, but listen to what she says.
I feel like everybody might have a tad bit of OCD, but I feel like some people are actually diagnosed with it. Like my girlfriend, she was diagnosed with OCD disorder, and so was I. But in certain cases, hers is worse, and in certain cases, mine is a little worse. But I feel like everybody is compulsive over something. So if you are, you should tell me down in the comments below. Why not?
So from what I can tell, this is Amber's first ever claim that she has been diagnosed with OCD. She then goes on throughout this era to claim that these little quirks in her personality or these little unique behaviours that she shows are due to this OCD that she claims to have. For example,
I'm sure you could tell I changed my makeup style because I did. I was having major like OCD with the other style I was doing. I kind of felt like it was uneven, and I don't read in the car. I don't read when I go anywhere, but I feel like it's just this weird OCD type of thing that if I leave the house, I like my book with me. Crystal does the laundry. I choose to put away my own clothes just because I'm like OCD. I will not have her put away my clothes. And I gotta say, writing it all down in the journal was very tedious. It got boring. It kind of annoyed me because I'm so OCD and I like how to do it absolutely perfect. I haven't even started packing yet, and I'm like really OCD when I pack. Like I plan my outfits, I plan my jewelry, and I write it all down. It's just like this really creepy obsession I have, but it has to be like perfect, and I haven't even started doing that. So I do have obsessive compulsive disorder, not just, oh, I have OCD, but I actually have the disorder in several different aspects of my life.
You'll notice that Amber only really mentions OCD in the context of her trying to make herself seem unique and quirky. That's my opinion. And it always seems to be about some kind of vapid thing, like lining up items or writing lists or paying bills. But it was particularly prominent during this time period. So Amber goes on with making her videos, and she mentions OCD over and over again on her channel. All throughout the Crystal era, she goes on about her having OCD loads. And I noticed when I was looking through her channel that after she and Crystal break up, it seems to me anyway that the frequency of these OCD claims decreases massively. She does still make mention of it here and there when talking about paying bills and other kinds of things.
But I'm really OCD when it comes to our bills. Every single month I have a whole booklet for it.
But the frequency of these mentions, as I've said, drops right down. Almost like Crystal goes out of Amber's life and then all of a sudden she's not asked in claiming that she has OCD anymore. But she does still mention it. It's not like she suddenly stops. She still talks about it here and there. And in February of 2021, in this video here, she claims yet again that she has been diagnosed with OCD.
You have OCD. Yes. And yes, I was diagnosed. Calm down.
So there it is, once again, out of the horse's mouth, and this is not the only time she says this. She claims not only that she has OCD, she specifically says that she's been diagnosed. Just a few months later, after the video I just played you a clip from, there's a live stream, this live stream here, where Amber is asked about her OCD. Now watch this.
Hey Amberlynn, sorry if this is personal, but my mom has OCD. Do you do rituals before you leave the house? I'm just curious. Hope you're well. Thank you for the super chat. I make sure the door's locked a few different times. That's like a big one, but I feel like a lot of people do that.
So this person is asking Amber to talk about her OCD. They mention rituals, which can be a big part of OCD for some people, and these rituals, from what I've read, can be seriously debilitating. It sounds like it can cause severe mental anguish. So when Amber is asked this in her live, as somebody who claims to have OCD, you would think that she would have a little bit more to say on it, maybe, because she's talked about these rituals in the past on her channel. However, when she's asked asked, this is all she says. Now, like I've said, this response doesn't mean that she doesn't have OCD. It could be that she just doesn't struggle with the rituals. But it just seems a little bit odd to me that when she's given this moment on a platter to actually discuss her struggles, all of a sudden she's got nothing to say. So I don't think anyone was really that surprised when Amber, about 9 months later, made this video here. It's called I Lied and I'm So Sorry. And in this video, Amber kind of admits to her lies. She doesn't actually call them lies, she calls them inconsistencies.
So I am going to be reacting to a video that points out my inconsistencies so I can understand why it may be hard to believe things I say because of my inconsistencies.
But she does admit in this video that she in fact has not been diagnosed with OCD.
I have like forms of OCD. I do. Nowhere near as bad as some people, so I'm not saying that at all. But I do some OCD things. I do. And one of the worst ones is picking my skin. I literally can't stop. I hate it more than anything. I wanted to open up a bit about my OCD. No, never been diagnosed with OCD because I've never been tested, but I have been diagnosed with OCPD because I have been tested. So I don't know what to do with that information, but I feel like I should put it out there.
She claims instead, as you've just heard, to have been diagnosed with OCPD, which is very different. Now, this is not where the confusion and fuckery ends, but let's have 2 minutes here to just discuss this difference between OCD and OCPD, a distinction which, if Amber had in fact been diagnosed, I think she would absolutely know about. So underneath this video, the one I've just mentioned, somebody comments this: OCPD and OCD are not the same thing at all, and this is totally true. Please bear in mind that all I've done here for this video is read like a bunch of different articles. I'm not a psychologist at all, but as I understand it, OCD and OCPD are like fundamentally different, although it's true that you can have both, as Amber goes on in the future to claim, but we'll talk about that in a minute. It's relatively unlikely from what I've seen to have both, but in a nutshell, the difference between these two things is in essence the nature of the disorder. So when it comes to OCD, OCD is an anxiety disorder and OCPD is a personality disorder. Both conditions can overlap, but they are distinct. OCD is an anxiety disorder with intrusive thoughts and compulsions, while OCPD is a personality disorder characterized by perfectionism and order. And although these two things can coexist in someone, getting a diagnosis for one can be really difficult. It can take a long time, a lot of dedication with the same psychotherapist or the same diagnoser. Different people can diagnose stuff in different countries, as I understand it, but it would require a lot of time, effort, consistency, and there is no sign on Amber's channel of her ever putting in this kind of work into anything, let alone receiving a real diagnosis. I showed you a clip a few seconds ago from this video here where we see Amber saying that she was never diagnosed with OCD, but as I've mentioned already multiple times over the years prior, Amber claims that she does have it and that she was diagnosed. So this is already one instance of her absolutely lying about this, and this is not the only diagnosis she's lied about, as I'm sure you all know. So we know that Amber's lied about having OCD once before. In my opinion, it is not a big stretch at all to assume that, just like some of her other diagnosis claims, Amber is lying about having OCD and OCPD as well. And I'm pretty sure if she had received this formal diagnosis, she would know that she had OCPD and not OCD. So why is she going on about having OCD the whole way throughout her channel? But it gets even more complicated still. So in May of 2022, in the clip that I just showed, Amber says that she has not been tested for OCD, right? She says, I have OCPD, but I don't have OCD because I was never evaluated or tested or assessed for it. But then, just 8 months later, in this video here, I think I'm going to put it there, Amber claims again that she in fact has been diagnosed with OCD.
And I don't know if this is like because I have that obsessive side of me. Like, I was diagnosed with OCPD, which is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. I was diagnosed with that like 5 years ago. And it was just like a couple years ago I was diagnosed with actual OCD. You can have both.
So you've just heard Amber say that she was diagnosed about 2 years ago, but as I've just shown you in the video that I've already played, this video here, where Amber says that she was not diagnosed with OCD, this video was made only 9 months prior. So in this video, she says she was diagnosed with OCD around 2 years ago, but 9 months prior, she says that she wasn't diagnosed with OCD ever. In the time between these two videos, so the 9 months that have passed between her saying she isn't diagnosed and her saying she is diagnosed, not once on her channel does she make any mention of being assessed for OCD. It's possible that she went away, got assessed in that time and never mentioned it and never talked about it on her YouTube channel, but I think we all know that's highly unlikely. Amber will monetize just about anything, so if she was being evaluated for OCD, she absolutely would have made content about it, but she doesn't mention it in this time period at all. So this timeline is completely a total mess and it's just not believable at all. I firmly believe that as per her general MO on YouTube, she's absolutely lying about this diagnosis. Of course, I concede that this kind of 2-year, 9-month discrepancy could just be an innocent mistake, which I highly doubt. There are multiple instances throughout Amber's time on YouTube before the 2022 video where she admits that she was never diagnosed, where she claims that she was diagnosed. For example, this video here, where she literally says, when I was younger, I was diagnosed with OCD.
When I was younger, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. A lot of people joke about having OCD or being OCD with certain things, but it's not really something to joke about when someone really has it. Because when I was diagnosed with OCD, like, they sat there and they were like explaining everything to me, and I had to tell them like all the weird things that I did.
But I think it's pretty clear from her body language and what she's saying that she's lying in this video. She also later goes on to admit that she was lying anyway. Of course, Amber being a liar isn't particularly new information. It's not very interesting. It's certainly no revelation, but there are two things which I think are interesting about this. So the first one is the damage that lies like this can do in general, and the second one is the question of why Amber's lying. Why on earth is she even lying about this in the first place? And I think the way we can tell this is by looking at the context that she lied in. So when she first started talking about OCD at the beginning of her channel, she was dating Crystal, as many of you know, Crystal, who allegedly, according to Amber, did in fact have OCD. And those of you who've seen lots of Amber content will know that assimilating to the person that she's dating is something Amber does. I think it's kind of a narcissistic thing to do when you lack like a genuine sense of self in yourself. You sort of copy the people around you. It's not just narcissistic, if we're honest, because I think a lot of people do that, especially when you're young. You don't really know who you are. I'm not saying this is always unhealthy, but it's something that Amber has absolutely done. She stole Casey's coming out story. Anybody who she spends time with, she starts speaking and laughing just like them. So I think back then, when she first started her channel, she was just trying to be like Crystal. Crystal had this interesting, quote-unquote interesting, quirky diagnosis, and I think Amber wanted to have it too. She thought that it made Crystal special. She wanted to be special, so I think that's why she keeps going on about it in the early stages of her YouTube channel. But more recently, when Amber discusses her OCD, she tends to do it with reference to two different things: her cleanliness and her excoriation. So when Amber first brings OCD back up in her recent live streams, she hasn't mentioned it in several months, but she does mention it in this live stream here. So this is the live, it's called You'll Never Believe This. It's from about 6 days ago. And in this live, Amber discusses her excoriation, and she claims that she does this skin picking because of her OCD.
I have had excoriation since I was a little girl. A lot of people don't know what that is, so I'm going to explain it to you. It is a mental illness related to obsessive compulsive disorder. Excoriation disorder, which is commonly known as I can't say that word, is a mental disorder on the obsessive compulsive spectrum.
But the issue, of course, is that Amber doesn't seem to have a diagnosis of OCD, and instead she uses it as an excuse to try and explain away all of the marks on her skin. So photos from a previous live stream, I'll put the photo here, I imagine it will be in the thumbnail, were shared all over Girl World. So these pictures kind of went, you know, Girl World viral of Amber's arms. Credit to Despectful Moments on Instagram, and that's where I got this picture from. You can see that these marks, which she claims are due to her cat scratching her and then her picking her skin or whatever, are due to her having excoriation, which Amber claims she has because of her OCD. I'm not going to argue about whether or not the marks come from cat scratching or from bed bugs, because that whole thing is just so crazy. What I am interested in is why Amber always insists on blaming her problems on some kind of diagnosis, which I think she does not have. Just to be really clear here, I have no idea if Amber actually has OCD or not. My point is not that she doesn't have it, my point is that she has not been diagnosed with it. If you go back over Amber's channel, many of the times when she's brought up her OCD generally over the years, it's almost always because she's trying to explain these marks on her arms, which if you look, she's had for a really long time. I suppose it doesn't really matter where the actual marks come from, whether it's like the cat scratching or bed bugs or whatever. What's more interesting is the fact that she blames them on OCD. She goes on to talk about OCD even more, mentioning therapy as well.
Like, my mom has seen me deal with this. Like, as a little girl, I would get, I'm like getting itchy thinking about this, and it's like making me like sick. As a little girl, I would get like mosquito bites, and then eventually they would turn into scabs. Like, this is just something that I have always dealt with. I have talked to you guys about this on my channel for literally ever. It is an obsessive, compulsive thing that I have never been able to heal from. I have talked to therapists, I have talked to psychologists. All they can say is find coping mechanisms.
We will talk more about Amber's attitude towards therapy later in the video, but it's really clear from this clip alone that Amber doesn't engage meaningfully with therapy at all for any of the conditions that she may or may not have. More on the therapy stuff later. The point is that this excoriation, which Amber seems to be quite embarrassed of, is one of the things that she excuses with this OCD claim. Not that she needs to excuse it at all, but she clearly feels like she does, because that is what she has done. So the excoriation is not the only reason that Amber brings up her OCD. In the following live stream, this one here, she goes into it extensively. Now, this is her most recent live at the time of me filming this video. It's called The Sink is My Best Friend. It's in this live stream here that she once again calls on her OCD as an excuse for her strange activities, namely in the shower. So during this live, Amber spends a really long time, around about 10 minutes, just describing to the audience what her shower routine is.
Who has a whole stack of washcloths? I use 3 per shower. 1 for the bits, 1 for the body, and 1 for like once it's all clean, like round 2, but like a quick round where it's everywhere. I have very particular shower habits. Do 1 for the bits, 1 for the rest of your body, and then like what the fuck? I'm drawing a blank. Like exfoliate your whole body. But yeah, I like to use like regular soap for the bits and then the whole body. My 3rd round is like an exfoliating type of soap, and that's just like a quick everywhere. So I have to be very particular the way that I do things to prevent, you know, bacterias and infections and more cellulitis and this and that. That sounds like an OCD ritual. I totally get it. I have a lot of rituals throughout the day. That's what I consider, you know, I've talked to you guys about my cleaning rounds, and it's very like particular. And that's just like another kind of example of a ritual that I do. People think I was joking when I said I got diagnosed with OCD. Like, you guys see the scars on my arms from my excoriation. That's due to OCD.
It's quite clear to me that once again, she's using OCD as something that she can point at to try and explain away one of the criticisms that she faces, which is that she's not very clean. Her argument is basically, you guys think I'm not very clean. You're totally wrong. I have OCD, therefore I must be clean. This comment underneath this video really made me laugh. Somebody writes, the way she talks about showering is like if an alien was visiting Earth for the first time and was trying to fit in with humans. It's quite funny and very accurate. She just goes on and on and on about it. And with Amber, the more she talks about something, the more vapid detail she gives, the more it seems seems like she's lying. But more interesting even than this is when in this live, Amber once again brings up her OCD and she says this.
So people don't understand like what actual like obsessive thoughts and obsessive like OCDs are. And for some reason, out of everything that I struggle with, my obsessive habits or my OCDs are the one thing that I genuinely have the hardest time talking about.
But you'll notice that Amber says in this clip that she finds it really hard to talk about her OCD. Now, I suspect that this is because she knows so little about actual OCD and how it actually affects people who really do have it, because she in fact does not have it. I think she doesn't like talking about it because she knows that the more she talks, the more clear it is that she in fact hasn't got it. Anyway, this mention here of OCD and cleanliness is kind of ironic because we know that according to many of Amber's exes, her cleanliness and, self-hygiene is actually very, very poor. We know that she leaves pee pads for her dogs around the house. She kicked off when Emily asked her to wipe the sink down after she used it for her personal toilet business. And her ex Destiny is even on record as saying that Amber smells like swamp ass. Now, I'm not trying to shame Amber for her hygiene because I know that at her size it's probably really difficult to keep clean, but the thing is, you can't impose that on other people. You need to do something about it. You can't be gross and unclean in other people's houses, and you certainly can't lie about having OCD to try and deflect from the fact that you can't wipe your own ass. The point I'm trying to make is that this kind of broad claim that Amber makes of having OCD is, in my view, simply Amber trying to make it sound like she's a clean person because she has a very rudimentary, basic TikTok understanding of what OCD is, and she thinks OCD equals being clean, which of course it's so much more than that. In fact, in the past, when discussing OCD, Amber has claimed that she also suffers with contamination anxiety.
I'm afraid of sink water. I feel like it's contaminated, even if it's filtered. I know it's just my contamination OCD, so please ignore that.
She blames this also on her OCD, but I think it's painfully clear that she just wants to be quirky and unique. This is why I found it so ironic when later on in this live stream, Amber says this.
OCD isn't, oh my God, all of my markers have to be lined up perfectly. That could be a part of your OCD, but that's more so you just like to be organized. OCD isn't, oh, my sink has to be cleaned after I wash my dishes. No, you're just a cleanly person.
This is kind of funny because Amber spent years of her life on YouTube doing exactly this, calling these quirky behaviours OCD. She'd say things like, I'm so OCD, I have to pay my bills on time, when in fact she didn't even bloody have it. She certainly didn't have a diagnosis of it then, and we know that as a fact because she's admitted it herself. Amber lied about having OCD as a way to deflect from the claims against her that she has poor personal hygiene, and to make herself seem unique and quirky and interesting, and to give herself an identity. Well, to steal the identity from her then girlfriend Crystal. Those are the reasons that I think Amber might have lied about the OCD thing in the first place. But let's get on now to another point that I kind of want to cover, which is the damage of lying about something like this. So I know people might ask me, like, why do you care? Why does it matter? If she wants to say that she's got something that she doesn't have, then who cares? Can't she self-diagnose, etc., etc.? And no, as I understand it, self-diagnosis of OCD is not valid, mainly because, as we know, it could be OCPD, but also lots of these kind of diagnoses have overlapping symptoms. So you kind of have to see a professional so they can talk to you at length and work out, oh, have you got that or have you got that? And kind of whittle it down. We are often not the best judges of our own behaviour as well. So I don't think that self-diagnosis of OCD is valid. I think, unless like there's loads of research about that being completely valid that I just haven't seen, I don't know. As I understand it, it's not ideal to self-diagnose with OCD. But either way, if your goal as an individual is to try and grow and be honest with yourself, then constantly hiding behind imaginary diagnoses that you don't really have, that you use as an excuse for your behaviour, kind of stops you from tackling like the real problem that you may or may not have, which is obviously not ideal. But it isn't just that, it's also like super upsetting and offensive to people who do actually have OCD. For example, I saw this comment underneath Amber's video. Somebody writes, not her making light of OCD habits in in others. Amber has shown many, many times that she doesn't like talking about her OCD, and she only brings it up or wants to talk about it when it benefits her or when she can use it as a deflection. But also, Amber clearly doesn't know very much about OCD. Whenever she's asked about it and it's not her own choice to bring it up, she always says she doesn't want to talk about it or she finds it hard to talk about. Now, this could be true. It could be that she has a formal diagnosis of OCD and OCPD and she doesn't like talking about it, but that doesn't really seem to fit in with Amber's way of being. She seems to love talking about herself and love talking about her diagnoses. And I suspect, as I've kind of already touched on in this video, that part of the reason she doesn't like talking about it is because she knows nothing about it. She says in this video here, when she's asked, that she doesn't like talking about it because people get annoyed with her when she mentions it.
I wanted to ask about your OCD that you are diagnosed with. I was wondering why you rarely talk about it anymore in recent memory. I know you are open about your BPD and those struggles. I'm just wondering why any of your other diagnoses don't get that attention, or is it like a personal reason, but thank you.
It's because of the backlash. Like, anyone in my personal life knows the things that I deal with to an extent. But like now, sometimes like I catch myself just saying my anxieties, like my contamination anxieties. And I know that it's a lot further than that. And there's things that I do that a lot of people would not believe me if I spoke about it. And to me, it's something that like I genuinely deal with constantly. Like, I have mentioned it like just the tiniest little bit, and just the way that people react, like it makes me feel really sad.
But I rather think that it's because when she mentions it, she makes it really clear that she doesn't fucking have it. The other problem with claiming that you have a diagnosis that you just don't fucking have is it perpetuates the stigma. So if your behaviour is really shitty and you're someone who does all kinds of crap, awful things on the internet, then claiming that you have a diagnosis that you don't have can make the stigma worse for people who actually do have it, particularly if you use it as an excuse for your shit behaviour, just like Amber does. She does it with OCD, she does it with BPD. Somebody comments this under one of Amber's videos. This person, Tibble, I see him in the Girl World comments quite a bit. He says, she can't even correctly say the buzzword disorder she claims to have. Borderline people, narcissist people, it's so incredibly disrespectful to those who actually struggle with the disorder to preach about it and yet not know what to properly call it, or those who struggle with it. And I agree. It's just straight up wrong and weird to claim that you have a diagnosis that you don't have and then lie to your audience about it. And as I've said many times, this is not the only diagnosis that Amber has been proven to be lying about. Granted, it's possible, as I've said, that she's not lying about it this time round, and in those 9 months between saying she didn't have it and saying she did have it, she got assessed and diagnosed. But as I've said, she never once mentioned it in that time, and she has a history of lying about diagnosis, including OCD, so I think it's probably fair to assume that she is lying about this now as well. But of course, it's possible that I'm wrong. It's possible that Amber does have OCD, but if she does have it, regardless, either way, she is absolutely not treating it. She's not engaging in any meaningful therapy for it. We know this because in the live I've already mentioned, the one where she goes on about OCD, she says a whole bunch of ignorant stuff about therapy and how she thinks that therapy is just venting.
Therapy doesn't work for everyone. I have done therapy on and off for, God, since I was 9 years old. The longest I've ever been with a singular therapist was in 2022, 2023. It was almost a year. It just doesn't work for everyone. To me, sometimes therapy feels like you're just venting so much. They can't give you advice, you know, it's just kind of like someone that you're just venting to. And I feel like I do that a lot in journaling. I like to do a lot of reading, which helps, reading about things and the way you can change your behavior and become aware. And I have done so many forms of therapy, and it just feels like, do I really want to vent do I want to pay that much money every single week to just like vent when it's something that I feel like is not helping me? And that's like with almost every therapist. Is therapy off the line fully right now? No. I just think that that's a personal choice. And I literally just stopped therapy like a couple months ago.
But 1 month prior, in this live stream here, she makes it sound like she is in therapy.
I kind of just like peace out. I feel like, you know, with therapy and just working on myself and awareness and Zoloft and like the whole nine, like I just feel so much better, and I just feel really good. So I love that.
So there's a discrepancy there as to whether she's even in therapy. Now she admits that she isn't. I don't think she has been for absolutely months. I think she lied about being in DBT therapy for her BPD for ages, but other people have commented on this as well. Underneath this video, this person comments, therapy doesn't work on people who don't want to change or are too dumb to understand how it works. And I agree that if you go to therapy, you have to be willing to change. You have to want to change. Otherwise, you're just talking in circles and you're never going to get anywhere. And this other person comments, she doesn't want to get help. If she gets help, she won't have anything to blame her terrible behaviour on. And I think this is absolutely true. And we've seen it somewhere in the messages between Amber and Emily. I can't remember where it was. I think I shared these ones. Pretty sure I did. Amber says something about how she's scared to go to therapy because she doesn't want to have to face this part of herself. And Emily's saying, yeah, but you have to, basically. And it's quite obvious that Amber has never really wanted to have meaningful therapy, and she admits it in this live here. So not only is her behaviour horrendous and she's absolutely awful, she's not even trying to fix it. I think that if Amber even has like 10% of the mental health diagnoses that she's claimed over the years, she absolutely should be in like regular good quality therapy, but she clearly thinks that she doesn't need to be. I also noticed this comment on her recent live where somebody says you lie to yourself the most, and I absolutely agree. I think that that is one of the most powerful, simple insights of Amber generally. Not only is she lying to us, her viewers, she actually believes, I think, that she has this stuff. I think the reason she says it so confidently is because she thinks it's true. There's been multiple times on her channel where she said things like, it's just so obvious. It's so obvious that I have BPD. It's so obvious that I have OCD. And that makes it very clear, I think, or very likely anyway, that she's self-diagnosing. She's saying, well, it's obvious, of course I have it. And I think that that is the root of her self-diagnosis. But because she lies to herself generally, you can't diagnose yourself if you lie to yourself. You can't diagnose yourself anyway, but it's definitely not a great method if, you know, you have potentially loads of different things all fighting with each other and your behaviour affects your pets and your family members and your partners. You need to get in therapy and get real diagnoses. I don't know what's worse, the fact that she lies to herself or the fact that she lies to her audience, but I think either way, with her channel, she's trying to keep up this appearance of somebody who wants to do the work and is trying to do the work, but it doesn't seem like she actually is doing it at all. Hearing Amber say that therapy is just venting was like kind of one of the most disheartening things I've ever heard Amber say, because I want to see Amber work on herself, right? I don't want to make videos about Amber for however long and then she just never changes, never grows, and the season finale happens and she never did the work. But I'm also kind of losing hope because seeing her say things like, you know, therapy is just venting, I'm not going to pay for that, kind of makes you think like, oh fuck, we really might be wasting our time here. Amber saying to us, her audience and her viewers generally, that she has a diagnosis that she doesn't have is pretty shitty and harmful because she's lying to her audience, but also she's lying to herself, and she can't move forward and have treatment for a diagnosis that she doesn't even have. I guess she's kind of like getting in her own way on that front. The main thing is though, she needs to stop lying about diagnoses. It's not cute, it's not quirky, it doesn't help her or anyone. She doesn't give useful, insightful content about the diagnoses that she has. She just uses them as a massive excuse. And I just think it needs to stop. It's really gross. Saying you have OCD when you don't, when you've got people in your audience who actually do have OCD and really struggle with it. I just think it's pretty unhelpful, to be honest, and she needs to like stop doing that. Those are my thoughts about Amber and the OCD lies. Let me know if you have OCD and you care about Amber lying about it. Does it matter to you? What are your thoughts? I'd be very interested to see that. I'm going to leave that video there. Hopefully I'll be back to uploading more regularly now. I went away to Liverpool for a while. I had the best time ever. I love Liverpool. Such a cool city. Brilliant place. Got stuck in very bad match day traffic. Rookie error. But yeah, that was great. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye.